Have you ever had that feeling, where the way things have always been done, maybe especially in spiritual communities, it just feels, well, a bit out of sync. Like we're
Mm.
trying to fit this square peg into what feels like a very postmodern round hole.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Thinking about the world we're actually living in, where authenticity is just so highly prized, right?
Mm.
And institutions often get, well, a healthy dose of distrust.
Definitely. And people are genuinely hungry for real connection, like real connection.
Exactly. So today we're going to really dig into a fascinating stack of sources that explore exactly that feeling. We're looking specifically through a Christian and biblical lens.
Right.
Our mission really is to unpack how this ancient, pretty radical idea, often called koinonia, might actually be the key.
Mm.
The key to finding what some of these sources call missional hope in a postmodern age.
That's a great phrase, missional hope.
Yeah. So we'll explore what this really means for you, what it might look like, in practice, and why maybe it's not just some nostalgic throwback, but actually an urgent, maybe even disruptive truth for right now.
It really feels like the air is different, doesn't it? Postmodernity, it's not just some philosophical thing in a book.
No.
It's how life feels. It's
Yeah.
tangible. You see it like everywhere. Truth feels kind of fragmented,
Yeah, slippery even.
totally.
Yeah.
And institutions viewed with deep suspicion a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And identity itself. For many, it's almost become a kind of performance,
Yeah.
especially online.
Right, the digital performance.
Yeah. And here's the paradox. We're hyper-connected, right? Devices everywhere. Yet there's this profound loneliness underneath, a real, crisis of connection.
Mm-hmm.
But what's really striking, looking through this material, is that even with all the skepticism, all the digital noise, there's still this deep, often unspoken hunger for meaning, for transcendence even.
That's such a crucial point, and it highlights why, maybe for a lot of people, those traditional church models just feel, well, hopelessly out of step sometimes.
Right, they don't quite land.
Yeah, like program spirituality can feel a bit shallow, maybe, and that top-down teaching style, it can come across as kind of patronizing, especially to a culture that's already pretty wary of hierarchy.
Absolutely.
But here's where I think it gets really interesting. There's this quite bold, provocative idea in some of these sources that this very cultural moment, the stuff many might actually fear, like rising secularism or disillusionment with the institutions, the fragmentation of truth, that this could actually be incredibly fertile ground in the gospel.
It's a total flip, a reframing.
Exactly, a complete reframing.
And that reframing really brings us right to this ancient biblical idea, koinonia.
Yeah.
Which seems to speak so directly into that postmodern longing we were just talking about.
Okay, so let's unpack koinonia. What's the core?
Well, at its root, the Greek word koinos just means common or shared. Pretty simple.
Mm-hmm.
But koinonia itself, it means way more than just, casual fellowship, like coffee after the service.
Right, not just hanging out.
No, it's talking about deep participatory fellowship,
Yeah.
mutual contribution, a real sense of shared communal purpose. It's profound, really.
So participatory, mutual, communal purpose, that sounds very different. And what's striking from what we reviewed is that this isn't just like a sociological good idea, it's deeply theological, isn't it?
Hugely, yeah. The sources really emphasize that koinonia reflects the eternal koinonia, that shared life, that mutual indwelling of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.
Wow, okay.
And then the argument is, well, humanity is actually wired for that same kind of relationship. We were, in a sense, created for that depth of connection.
That's powerful, wired for it.
Exactly. And you see this blueprint, laid out so clearly in the early church. Acts chapter 2, verses 42 to 47, and then chapter 4, verses 32, 33. It's all there.
What did that look like practically for them?
Well, the text says believers literally had everything in common. They were breaking bread house to house. But what's really critical, I think, is the flow you see.
The flow.
Yeah, their unity, their togetherness seems to come before the radical generosity. And then that generosity, it kind of organically fuels their mission. It flows outwards.
Ah, okay. Unity first, then generosity, then mission.
Kind of, yeah. And think about Paul's metaphor, the church is a body in 1 Corinthians 12. Every single member is interdependent. You're not just a passive spectator.
Right, not an audience member.
Exactly. Each part is absolutely essential for the whole body to function properly.
Which I think brings us to a really crucial understanding here. Reading through all this, it becomes incredibly clear koinonia isn't just, another ministry model you can adopt.
Yeah.
Or a strategy to copy.
No, not at all.
It's presented as the church's actual essence. It's like its DNA that needs to be recovered. It's not something the church does to get good community. It's who the church is when it's actually being the church.
Absolutely spot on. It is the church. And this essence, this koinonia, it resonates so strongly, perhaps surprisingly, with the postmodern heart, precisely because it aligns with these core values people hold today.
How so? What's the connection?
Well, think about that craving for authenticity we mentioned. People want what's real, unpolished, human.
Yeah, tired of the performance.
Right, and koinonia, by its nature, offers vulnerable transparency. It normalizes struggle. It allows people to see transformation happening, in process, rather than being presented with some curated, perfect image. It embraces the mess.
That is a massive difference, especially when you think about that postmodern rejection of just being a passive consumer. People want to engage, right? To co-create.
Exactly. And in a koinonia setup, everyone genuinely contributes. It shifts the whole dynamic away from being, platform-centric, where everyone just sits and watches or listens.
With Sage on the stage.
Yeah, exactly, towards something that's participation-centric, where people are actively involved, shaping the life of the community together.
And that must also speak to that suspicion of institutions we talked about earlier.
It tackles it head-on. Because koinonia naturally fosters flatter structures. Authority isn't automatically granted by a title or position. It's earned through relationship, through trust.
So leadership looks different too.
Oh, completely. It becomes servant-hearted, relationally embedded. The church starts to function more like a network of networks, not a top-down pyramid of control. And that just naturally disarms a lot of the skepticism people carry towards big, impersonal organizations.
And it seems like it makes theology much more embodied, less abstract.
Totally. Instead of just abstract doctrines floating around, Koinos communities ground truth in lived experience. Like you learn forgiveness by actually working through conflict with someone in a shared kitchen.
Right. Not just hearing a sermon about it.
Precisely. Or you experience grace by seeing how someone stays at the table, stays in relationship, even after a failure. The sources point out, for the early church, their lives were the argument for the gospel. Their actions spoke volumes, maybe more than just their words.
Wow. Their lives were the argument. That's powerful.
And think about the shift in what people are looking for. It's less about wanting to, say, join an organization, and much more about finding a people, a place where they can truly belong and be known.
Belonging before believing.
Exactly, that phrase comes up. Koinonia inherently creates that sense of belonging before demanding belief, which is such a powerful and, frankly, countercultural invitation in our fragmented world. It prioritizes the genuine connection, letting people encounter Christ through the relationships themselves, not just through, like, a formal membership class.
Okay, this is really compelling, but let's make it concrete. Let's unpack this with some, real-world examples. What does this koinonia actually look like in practice today? What forms are these communities taking?
Well, one thing we're definitely seeing is a significant rise in what some call micro-communities of mission.
Micro-communities.
Yeah, think small. Usually like 3 to maybe 20 people, very relationally based. They might meet in homes or cafés, maybe online sometimes.
And what do they do?
The focus tends to be on the basics. Scripture, prayer, communion or breaking bread, mutual discipleship, helping each other grow, and importantly, local mission, how they engage their neighborhood or network together.
And who leads them? Is it clergy?
Often not, actually. That's another shift. They're frequently led by what the sources call lay shepherds, just ordinary people, not necessarily professional ministers.
That's fascinating. And it feels connected to another breakthrough mention, this idea of bivocational leadership.
Yes, absolutely. That's a huge trend. Leaders who are intentionally integrating their faith with their day job.
Like?
Well, they could be anything. Taxi drivers, nurses, teachers, artists, tech workers. The point is, their ministry isn't separate from their work. It's seamlessly integrated right into the marketplace, into their daily lives.
Which really breaks down that old sacred-secular divide, doesn't it? Where faith is just for Sunday.
Exactly. It says faith is for Monday through Saturday, too.
Yeah.
And it also means we're starting to reclaim ordinary places as sacred spaces. Well, if ministry is happening in the marketplace, then homes, cafes, parks, workplaces, these everyday spots become potential places of encounter. The ordinary setting becomes the altar, so to speak. It's not confined to a special building.
Okay. And what about generosity? You mentioned the early church had everything in common. How does that translate beyond just, say, putting money in a collection plate?
Yeah, it often looks like a more radical, lived-out generosity. Think weekly potlucks where everyone shares food, or maybe shared benevolence funds managed by the community itself, collaborative projects to serve the local neighborhood.
Practical stuff.
Very practical. And in a highly consumeristic world, these simple acts of sharing resources become, as one source put it, a prophetic act. It's like offering the watching world a little taste of God's abundance, a different kind of economy based on sharing, not just accumulating. It's really compelling.
It really is. Now, you mentioned meeting online sometimes. What about digital integration? How do these very relational communities use technology? Is it a replacement?
That's a great question. The sources are clear. Digital tools, things like WhatsApp, Zoom, Discord, whatever, they're generally used as amplifiers, not replacements.
Amplifiers.
Yeah, amplifiers for connection, for discipleship, for equipping people. They can extend presence, especially if people are geographically spread out. But they don't typically replace the core value of face-to-face embodied relationship. It's a both-hand approach.
Okay, that makes sense. So if we zoom out a bit, connect this to the bigger picture, it feels like the goal here isn't necessarily building one huge church, but something else.
Exactly right. These Koinos ecosystems, as some call them, seem to emphasize multiplication, not accumulation.
Growing forests, not empires.
That's the perfect analogy used in material, yeah. Growing forests, not empires. The growth happens horizontally, like scattered seeds taking root, rather than building one massive centralized structure.
And are there examples of this working at scale?
Absolutely. Some really compelling examples come up, like the rapidly growing underground church movements in places like Iran, or missional communities across Europe finding new traction, diaspora networks globally. They're often thriving through this decentralized relational multiplication, sometimes even under really difficult circumstances.
Wow, and a really practical application of this whole mindset seems to be engaging what are called third spaces.
Yes, those places where people naturally gather anyway. Outside of home, first space, and work, second space.
Like coffee shops, gyms.
Exactly. Coffee shops, pubs, gyms, libraries, co-working spaces, parks. The idea is to practice relational listening. Just be a consistent, caring presence there, meeting people where they already are, rather than always expecting them to come to a church building or event. It's less about attraction, more about incarnational presence.
Just showing up consistently.
Showing up, listening, building trust, slowly.
Okay, this all sounds incredibly transformative, but it also sounds hard. Let's be real about the cost. What are the challenges here?
Oh, the sources are very honest about the cost. Living out koinonia isn't the easy path. It's definitely slower. It's much messier. Yeah, because relationships are messy. It's riskier. It's certainly not efficient by typical organizational standards. And it's often unpredictable.
So not for the control freaks among us.
Probably not. It demands real-time investment. It requires actual forgiveness, which is tough in, a cancel culture moment. It means choosing to stay in relationship when it would honestly be easier to just walk away. And ultimately, the sources suggest it really exposes your idols, your desire for control, for comfort, for predictable results, for efficiency. It challenges all of that.
And with these flatter structures, these lay shepherds, what about things like accountability or theological drift? Is that a danger?
It's a definite tension and something that requires real wisdom. The sources absolutely acknowledge the need for spiritual maturity, for genuine accountability structures, even if they look different, and for clarity on the core tenets of the gospel. This isn't an excuse for becoming leaderless or doctrinally fuzzy.
Right. It needs intentionality.
Deep intentionality and mutual commitment. It requires everyone taking responsibility.
But despite all those challenges, the overwhelming sense from this material is that this cultural moment isn't something to fear, but it's actually a profound opportunity.
A huge opportunity, yeah. An opportunity for the church, perhaps, to shed some of those idols we just mentioned, the idols of control, efficiency, maybe even size and influence in the traditional sense.
And return to something else.
Return to maybe a humbler, more relational form of Christianity. The Koinos Church, living this way, acts as a prophetic witness.
What does that mean, practically? Prophetic witness?
It means embodying the kingdom's logic, which is often upside down compared to the world's logic. It's showing a different way to be human based on love, service, sharing, forgiveness in a world that's frankly starving for that kind of authenticity and connection. It's not about grabbing power, but about demonstrating a different kind of power, the power of shared life in the Spirit.
So really, as we start to wrap up this deep dive, it feels like the key takeaway is that this hunger for authenticity we see everywhere. It isn't a threat to genuine faith. It's actually an invitation.
Exactly. A massive invitation.
An invitation to rediscover something really ancient, really powerful, something found not in, bigger buildings or slicker programs, but in the shared, messy, beautiful, spirit-filled life of God's people together. The insights we've dug into today, they really paint this picture of the church becoming a living, breathing expression of God's new humanity.
Yeah. It stops performing maybe and starts healing.
Right. Stops shrinking behind walls and actually starts engaging neighborhoods, engaging the culture. It feels like a truly radical call to a different way of being human together.
It is. And it's so important to remember, this isn't just some nice theological idea floating around. It's about the incarnation of the gospel in our fragmented world. It pulls us right back to that core truth. The early church did just have koinonia as a program.
They were koinonia.
They were koinonia. It's who they were. It's remembering the church was never meant to be just an audience watching a stage show. It was meant to be a movement of spirit-filled disciples, multiplying grace and demonstrating God's love in every single sphere of life.
That's incredibly powerful. And it definitely raises a really important question, I think, for you, our listener, to just sit with, to mull over.
Yeah.
If the church really is called to be this movement of shared life, shared love, shared mission,
Then maybe.
yeah,
Maybe your most powerful leadership move right now, whatever your context, isn't actually to scale up. Maybe it's to kneel down.
kneel down.
Yeah, kneel down into the ordinary soil, the soil of shared life, slow faith, sometimes difficult love, all led by the Spirit.
Yeah.
What might change if that was the focus? What would that look like for you?